Since 1957 to date, Kenya has regularly held elections as a way of entrenching democracy. Kenyan elections have been competitive with a winner-take-it-all approach that has made them seem like a matter of life and death for many. Candidates employ all manner of ways, legal and illegal, to win. The electoral process has also continued to be marred with vices such as tribalism, election violence, insecurity among others, which have led to doubts among electorate and other stakeholders about its transparency and integrity. This calls for citizens to be vigilant. As they delegate sovereign powers to elected representatives, vigilance at every step of the electoral process to ensure a credible, free, fair and peaceful outcome. Election observation is part of this effort to maintain vigilance through detection, deterrence and delay of fraud and other malpractices. It is a critical cog in the electoral process. What is election observation?
For us as a citizen monitoring group, yes, we do work to promote credible, peaceful, free, fair elections, and we do that by citizens participating in the process, because citizens can participate in the process in different ways. They can do that by joining IBC, they can do that as politicians, they can do that as voters, but observation is another way that citizens also get to participate in this process. Observation is largely guided by adherence to the laws that are there, and observing also to a certain extent the political climate.
Democracy is far more than just holding elections. However, holding of transparent, accountable and credible election is an important cornerstone of democratic process in any country.
Tumshangilie kwa makofi, shangwe na nderemo.
Domestic and international election observers can make a significant contribution in this process. According to the International Institute of Democracy and Electoral Assistance, a respected global election think tank, election observation is the purposeful gathering of information regarding an electoral process and the making of informed judgments about the process based on information collected. In addition to providing credible information on the electoral processes, the presence of election observers builds voters and citizens' confidence in the integrity of the process as well as the integrity of the electoral body management. Non-partisan election observation helps to deter or expose violence or intimidation, as well as cheating or manipulation of the voter or the election results.
Below where I had written that they have refused to sign.
We had not verified, period. I was authorizing verification. Wewe una ujinga zaidi sana.
Therefore, I think as a returning officer, I have a decision to make. The MP is abusing me. I think unaweza kusikia akiongea kwa sasa. He's just related to me.
We are saying file the report. The report you want to file, Barossa, are the ones that you can file. You file the report you want. Let us go. We are doing your work.
Mutiko, I'm handing over this to you.
Mutiko, get a returning officer. Let's go in here.
There is nothing I'm going to do. Sasa nisipiko. Tafadhali. Nisipiko nini? Officer. Nisipiko nini?
Observing elections can be divided into three phases. For example, observing what occurs before, during and after elections.
My name is Mule Musau. I'm the National Coordinator for the Elections Observation Group, that is elog, which is basically a citizen election monitoring platform that is comprised of a number of organizations. As the name, of course, illustrates, it's a citizen election observation body that observes electoral processes in the country, and therefore it is comprised of local actors. So the elog membership is a platform. It has a number of organizations which come in as members and therefore participate in the processes of the elections. There are 10 steering committee members, organizations which have been formed for other purposes. Of course, some of them are faith-based organizations, and we also have civil society organizations which make up the outfit of elog. Those are the steering committee members. We have 6 further thematic members who have joined the elog in respect to observing certain themes. For instance, we do have women who would be interested in observing electoral processes in terms of how women are participating in the elections. We also have young people who again also participate to ensure that they are included in the electoral processes. Persons living with disabilities and other marginalized communities. So all those form part of the thematic members of elog. Therefore, as a citizen observation group, we are interested, of course, in observing how Kenya conducts itself in respect to the elections or the election processes. elog was established in 2010. It's actually as a result of the Kriegler report. For those of you, of course, who remember Kriegler report, this is the evaluation report which was done to the 2007 elections when Kenya had post-elections violence, and a number of things had to be done in order to be able to rectify the situation. So one of them was an evaluation of the electoral process was conducted, and this was a process which was led by the Justice Johan Kriegler from South Africa. Thereafter, that's why it was ended up being called the Kriegler report. And in that evaluation report, quite a number of things were discussed. Amongst them was the election system in the country, the management of elections, but also the observation of electoral processes in the country. And it was felt that the kind of observation which was being conducted in 2007 and the prior period was not very professional, was mainly ad hoc, that organizations just be born around the election time, and then they conduct elections around that time, and would be disbanded as soon as their report was given out. Now, considering that election processes are actually an ongoing activity, and that the modern approach in terms of looking at election is an electoral cycle one, where from one election to the other, a complete circle is formed by processes and activities which happen even in between. It was prudent, or so it was felt by the Kriegler Commission, that it was prudent that a permanent platform be established that would be able to observe elections in the country. And therefore, the elog concept was formed by a number of people and actors within the industry who felt that they needed to therefore renew themselves, retool themselves for purposes of observing electoral processes in the country. Elections are a people process in every country, and within a democratic enterprise like ours, the people need to participate. So therefore, any organization or platform that pretends to be a citizen election observer must have within its ranks the same very people that it talks or it proclaims to be able to represent. So within the elog observation process, the work is undertaken by Kenyan citizens themselves, so that for us to be able to conduct any electoral observation activity, we recruit, we train and deploy ordinary citizens in different parts of the country so they can be able to see the processes for themselves, observe the processes for themselves, especially at the local level where they understand those processes much better, and they are able to get back to us with data that has been, of course, which is captured within tools that we are able to interpret how the election processes went. So we've had quite a number of observers. In 2010, we were able to deploy around 10,000 observers across the country. In 2013, the number went to around 7,000. It's the same number, I think a little bit more. In 2017, we had over 8,000 observers being deployed countrywide. So, and where possible, we tried to work with the same citizens so that we can be able to build the capacity at the local level of a constituency of people, a community, if you are one would say, of practice at the local level, where you can be able to have people who are understanding of the electoral and to some larger extent governance operations of their country, and therefore you create some sensitization to the people in terms of how elections are conducted and therefore how to interrogate them better. So that is our contribution, or elog's contribution towards making the citizens of this country, of Kenya, much more responsive to the governance aspects of their country, and also to participate in the processes of by creating oversight over such important processes as the elections. It is imperative that observers try as much as possible to use as many innovative ways of getting information that speak to the electoral process as possible, and especially with the changing techniques which are being used, and technologies also which are being used in elections, in the conduct of elections. In 2007, we never had, for instance, the electronic identification systems. Since that time, this has been introduced in the electoral process. We have not had biometric registration, voter registration processes. These have since also been introduced. So it is important that observers also go in tandem with the new changes and technology and innovation, and that is what elog has been doing over the years. So that is part of trying to maintain the professional leverage when it comes to domestic election observation. It is also important to be able to say that beyond the country, that elog sits as the secretariat or the secretary of the East and Horn of Africa Election Observers Network. 5 countries came together, or 5 organizations, citizen observation platforms from 5 countries came together to form a network within the region. That is the East and Horn of Africa region, which is supposed to assist in terms of having solidarity and also, peer experiences and sharing within the region. That was formed in 2013, and elog was appointed as the first secretariat of the group. So it has a regional eye as far as election observation is concerned, in terms of trying to relate with the regional observation bodies or platforms that are also working to ensure that electoral processes or electoral justice is upheld in their different countries. Globally, we are signatories and members of the global network of domestic election monitors, and we've been a very important participant in that. Up to mid last year, elog was the global chair of the Transparency Committee of GENDEM, as it is called, and we have continued to be very important actors in the global network, contributing and participating in very many activities that have been spearheaded by the global network. As a result, of course, of being members of the global network, it is also important to be able to tell the public that we are signatory to what we call the global declaration of global principles of domestic election or observation, election observation, where a number of globally accepted standards and principles have been put together, and we not only assisted in the part of the putting together, but also ratified the same within ourselves, and therefore there is a code of ethics, there's a code of principles that we adhere to ensure that we continue and we remain a professional outfit that conducts itself with integrity in observing electoral processes in the country.
My name is Regina Opondo. I work for the Constitution and Reform Education Consortium, CRECO. CRECO is a network of 23 civil society organizations working on issues of good governance, human rights, and ensuring that citizens are engaged in every part of their governance as is possible. Because of that, we also do a lot of work around elections as CRECO. So we do voter education, we do research and learning, we do elections monitoring and observation, and we also do advocacy for a conducive environment for elections to happen. Because of this is how we find ourselves in the Elections Observation Group, elog, where I represent CRECO, but I also sit in the elog steering committee as the chairperson of the steering committee.
Hii katiba ni jukumu ya nani? Katiba yetu? Jukumu letu. Katiba yetu? Shukran.
We get our support from various people in terms of financing. Members also contribute because we contribute our time, we contribute sometimes our own resources. We get funding from various development partners, the embassies, development agencies such as USAID, DFID, OSEA, the Open Society, Institute for Eastern Africa, amongst many others. The EU, UNDP, etc. Members not only contribute their time and their own resources, but sometimes they contribute things like equipment, and then of course we carry the load of the work. We also wanted a platform that was Kenyan-owned, Kenyan-driven, and put citizens at the forefront. And for a long time, development agencies played a role because they held the purse strings. So we decided we're going to be around whether there's money or not. And that's why elog is there full-time throughout the cycle, whether there's money or not, elog is still around. And just keeping an eye on various electoral issues happening, monitoring by-elections, etc.
Okay, my name is Josephine Mongare. I am the FIDA chairperson. FIDA is a member of the Election Observation Group, which is a local observation group that has been monitoring and observing elections for the last 10 years. At the Election Observation Group, which is the elog, I sit in the Advisory Peace Panel. The Election Observation Group, or elog, has a three-tier system of levels. There is the Advisory Peace Panel that constitutes of the heads or chairpersons of the organizations that contribute membership to elog, and FIDA is one of the organizations from the civil society. This 2017, we were co-conveners. FIDA was a co-convener of the Election Observation Group of elog as an APP member. Now, the Advisory Peace Panel is an organ that gives direction, policy, and strategy to the entire elog, and we are involved in overseeing the management or the development of the policies that guide and the strategy that guides the elog activities. During the elections, we met several times. First of all, to come up with, to understand what elog as an organization was doing. Our role as the APP was to manage the political and aspirations of the Kenyan population. We, through use of diplomacy and behind-the-scene conversations, engaged the political players in Kenya to see that an outcome that was acceptable to Kenya and to Kenyans and to other players in the election process was achieved. And that elections is not a one-day affair. That election starts from the planning level, from the procurement of the tools that will be used for election. There need to be equity and equality seen at that time. From distribution of the voting materials, this means from registration of voters, the presence of the equality or the equal distribution to all parts of the country of the polling kits for registration purposes, and distribution of even the media space. We monitored election violence prior to the election, during the election, and after the elections. We were involved right up to the 26th of October election process, and our observers stayed on ground until 1 month thereafter. It is important to build trust prior to election, especially among Kenyans. And our message to IEBC was that being the election management body, because we did as APP meet with the IEBC on several occasions, just discuss their preparedness, to discuss what they were doing. It is important to make every Kenyan feel that their vote counts and will be counted. And we did send that message to IEBC that you cannot carry out a process where part of the population feels excluded. The election managers need to prepare the ground in advance, long before elections day. They should at least 1 year to the elections have the tools that will be used to conduct an elections already procured and brought into Kenya. Those are the KIMS kits, the voters' materials that require to be present, a voters' register, because as APP we were keen to see what was in the voters' register, should be made available to all Kenyans so that they are able to see whether their names are indeed in the voters' register. And this is something that we struggled with IEBC to try and see whether it could be availed not just to the APP or to elog, but to the entire Kenyan population. So preparedness is key, and it's a lesson that we learned that the country needs to start well in advance, 2-3 years before an election year, to put in place mechanisms that will lead to a fair, free, credible, and quantifiable process.
My name is Eustace Kinyo-Ndiga. I work for Election Observation Group. I am the Electoral Processes Coordinator. 2017 as opposed to 2013, there are so many things that have come into play. We've had 7 elections, yet in 2013, if you remember, we had 6 elections. There was no runoff. This time round, instead of a runoff, we had a repeat election. So moving forward, as an observer body, we need to expand our muscles and be ready for eventualities that we might be there for a long haul, and be able to put in mechanisms that can be able to allow the observers to be able to observe for longer, and be able to give reports and be able to capture what is happening to the country electoral sphere. So I think as an observer body, we have a mandate to the Kenyan people to continue preparing and putting in programs that are going to address the issues that have so far been adduced by the kind of environment we've gone through in 2017. The electoral reforms, for instance, we have been doing this exercise all year long, maybe before any election, but the way we've approached it, always it ends up happening at the tail end, maybe 2 years to an election, 1 year to an election. We need to change that tact and start thinking about reforms early in the electoral cycle, when the electoral temperatures are not that high, so that we can be able to address the issues that have been impacting on Kenyan people when we do these things at the tail end of the electoral cycle. Number 2, when we talk of advocacy, advocacy is another issue that also has failed a big deal by the civil society organizations that have been doing this work, whereby due to lack of resources and sometimes lack of content on what we need to do, because maybe we don't look at the reports as they have been prepared and look at the recommendations that we've been able to put along the way to be able to inform the advocacy programs that we put in place. So moving forward, we need to put more effort in our advocacy efforts. And elog being a member organization, we have 10 member organization and 9 thematic members. We have a lot on our plate. There's more to be done between now and 2021. I don't want to talk of 2022 because 2022 is an election year. So I want to put everything on the table from now, 2018 to 2021. There is more to be done by member organizations of elog. Beyond the membership of elog, the civil society also, we call upon the civil society organization to be more vibrant, to be more focused on advocacy programs that are going to inform the electoral processes in Kenya. More need to be done. We have now technology that it's here to stay. We need to start preparing tools that can be able to address the technology issues that is affecting observation in Kenya. How do we speak to the Supreme Court rulings? How do we speak to court cases? How do we maybe try and see how the judiciary is handling court cases? How do we talk to the political parties? How do we make sure that everybody is contributing to the bigger picture? And these questions must be asked from 2018 to 2020, not even 2021. If we cannot be able to make changes between 2018 and 2020, there is nothing much we can be able to impact change when it comes to 2021 to 2022. So I urge all Kenyans, this is the time to start thinking of what will be done in 2022. Let's have the conversation now. If it's about reforms, let's do reforms now. Let's start having a candid discussion around elections, and let's not wait for the politician to set the pace for us. If we allow politicians to be the one to set the pace, all will be lost. When we put away the interest of politicians and we leave it to the interest of the public, more will be done. There is more gains from 1992 to 2007 than what we've been able to achieve from 2007 to 2017. That difference is clear. Whether the government is reducing the space for the civil society, that should not be an excuse. It's about adapting to the changes that are happening in the country and making sure that we can be able to make the change. The question about elog being in Nairobi, or why is it not nationwide, is a question that has been lingering in many citizens' lips, and we need to answer that question once and for all. The question of where elog is, where the office of elog is what makes people think we are only in Nairobi, or we are more a Nairobi outfit than a national outfit. The truth of the matter is, election observation is a national outfit. When we deploy observers, we deploy in all the constituencies of this country. And when we go even beyond for the E-Day observation, we deploy observers to the ward level. Meaning, every ward in this country, all the 1450 wards in this country, we usually have a representative observing for elog. And those reports are citizen-based. We don't speak or make conclusion on our election based on the data that we collect from Nairobi. Our data comes from the grassroots. And that's already, it's a national outlook. The biggest question, if I would re-emphasize that question or try to put that question into context, is to ask, now that everybody has devolved, we have devolved governments, we have counties now, what is the position of elog in having maybe county observation units or constituency observation units? That is the question that we as a network, we are looking as a question that needs to be answered in the future. So when we are looking at our strategic plan, which is going to be prepared for 2020, from 2018 to 2023, those are some of the questions that we are going to try and answer. Because for sure, when we devolved, we also got organizations that operate specifically in particular counties and not in others. So that tells us that in future we might have organizations that are specific to specific counties, and then others that are maybe specific to a few counties. Others we might be even at the CBO level, community-based organizations that are at a particular level of a constituency. So when we are growing the partnership aspect, which elog endeavors to continue improving in the future, we want to make sure that those devolved units that have tried to have partnership with elog, when they want to develop observation units, elog will endeavor to make this unit be operational and be able to capture the aspiration of those particular counties or those particular constituencies moving forward. But to say that elog is national or it's at Nairobi, it's not at the grassroots, that has been a misconception. elog has always been observing to the smallest unit, that is the ward level.